Chapter 37. Preparing for My Escape. 1989 to 1991. After the Tiananmen Square massacre in late 1989, Mayor Jiang was appointed by Deng as the top leader of Communist China. Since former General Secretary Hu fell in 1987, Deng visited Shanghai annually to look for a potential successor. His doubts about the then-current General Secretary Zhao Ziyang grew after Hu's downfall, largely due to Zhao's close ties with Hu and his support for political reforms, which Deng ambiguously opposed. During the Tiananmen Square protests, Zhao adopted a tolerant stance towards the growing democratic movement. Jiang, by contrast, had played his cards well. He was strategically ambiguous, meticulously cautious, and, most crucially, he had demonstrated the precise kind of loyalty at the exact moment it was required. As a result, Zhao was ousted and Jiang was appointed. In late 1989, Jiang left Shanghai for a pivotal promotion in Beijing, assuming the top leadership role of General Secretary of the party. The atmosphere among us was mixed. Those who knew him well felt less excitement, but more anxiety. Uncertainty loomed over the future, creating an overall sense of foreboding. Before leaving for Beijing, Jiang Zemin paid a final visit to his predecessor, Wang Daohan, who had been the party's municipal secretary and mayor. Wang, an experienced politician with strategic thinking akin to a chess master, sent Jiang off with his Chinese calligraphic writing a farewell message that has remained etched in my memory. The burden of great responsibilities is immense and the path ahead is perilous. Take care and do not contemplate a return. At that moment, the deeper meaning behind Wang's words resonated with me immediately. Wang Daohan, a man who spoke with purpose, delivered a warning disguised as a farewell. His message was unmistakable. Jiang's journey to Beijing was not a triumphant crowning, but a risky venture into turbulent waters. The burden of power was great, the road ahead filled with threats, and once he departed, there would be no turning back. Since I began focusing on leaving China, I became a man living two lives. On the surface, I appeared unchanged. I still participated in high-level party meetings with Director Hu, absorbing policy briefings, government strategy sessions, and private discussions that influenced the city's political framework. I maintained my professional demeanor, effortlessly blending into the bureaucratic system. However, beneath that disguise, I had already departed. Every moment of free time was devoted to secret preparations, memorizing English vocabulary, as if each word brought me closer to my future. I meticulously strategized every action, aware that a single error could jeopardize everything. I silently distanced myself from the party, the government, and all aspects of my previous identity. I was a ghost within the system, operating in plain sight. The closer I got to my goal, the more dangerous the game became, but it was the only game worth playing. The departure of Jiang Zemin to Beijing instantly altered Shanghai's political landscape. Following his exit, a wave of uncertainty ensued. Zhu Rongji, the mayor, was appointed as party secretary, causing ripples of concern within the ranks. Director Hu, typically calm, showed visible signs of anxiety. Although he appeared happy that his former boss had reached the pinnacle of power, beneath was a sense of unease, which stemmed from Zhu Rongji. Zhu wasn't just another bureaucrat. He was something else entirely. He was known for his unyielding nature, a leader who tolerated neither incompetence nor opposition, a ruthless political enforcer who valued results above all else. Everything around me felt in flux, trembling under the burden of political intrigue. Yet I had already distanced myself from the chaos. While the bureaucrats nearby cowered in anxiety, I found myself merely counting down the days until my exit. Zhu Rongji's leadership had instilled a new breed of fear within Shanghai's government, a fear that consumed even those who formerly held power. He appeared to have zero tolerance for incompetence and no patience for inefficiency, and was uninterested in the political games that had long shielded many officials. The bureaucrats who once felt invulnerable now found themselves bare, quaking under his watchful eye. I observed these men, who had dedicated their lives to navigating the party's complex hierarchy, suddenly losing their confidence. Their hushed conversations became briefer. Their laughter, once a hallmark of post-meeting socializing, diminished into tense, silent moments. Meetings transformed into stages for public embarrassment, with each man aware that he might be the next target. But Zhu Rongji's persona was simply an elaborate act. His leadership relied on grandstanding, with reforms meticulously crafted for maximum impact. This was especially clear during his time as China's premier, when the performance aspect became more pronounced. What genuine issues did Zhu Rongji actually address? Under Jiang Zemin and Zhu Rongji, China transformed into a spectacle, an illusion of tranquil progress, hiding the same ruthless communist regime fashioned by Mao and Deng. While there appeared to be economic reforms, global integration, and a public commitment to modernization, the reality was that beneath the polished rhetoric and economic statistics, the party remained the same, clinging steadfastly to its core ideology and maintaining its unyielding grip. I feared that Director Hu had already faced public embarrassment from Zhu Rongji at a meeting I had missed. Although I had no concrete proof, the atmosphere felt different. Why was that? During several municipal and party meetings led by Zhu Rongji, I observed something remarkable, almost unimaginable within the Communist Party's structure. Sitting in the front row right next to me, Director Hu, now the general manager of Hengshan Group, started to doze off. He wasn't just lightly napping, he was snoring loudly. He was completely asleep, eyes shut and head drooped forward, in the midst of an important meeting, right in front of Secretary Zhu. For a party official of his rank, this was an unthinkable offense. This was blatant defiance in a party where even body language was scrutinized, and a misplaced expression could be a career-ending mistake. The whole room tightened with tension. I sensed the discomfort ripple through the rows of bureaucrats. The air became heavy with unspoken unease. Then Zhu Rongji's face caught my eye. His gaze was fixed on Hu, tinged with sarcasm, with disapproval barely concealed beneath. He remained silent. Yet the tension was thick, stretching like a wire on the verge of breaking. His stare turned to me, too, a silent reminder that Hu's defiance hadn't escaped notice. The way the other party officials tensed in their chairs made it clear they were all watching us closely. Director Hu had never acted this way under Jiang Zemin. During Jiang's meetings, regardless of their monotony or scripted nature, Director Hu consistently participated. He maintained an upright posture, remained engaged, nodded appropriately, and laughed when needed. He had mastered the skill of seeming attentive, energetic, and enthusiastic. He was willing to perform, for Jiang Zemin was his ally. However, the situation changed with Zhu Rongji, and I understood why. Director Hu had long been a loyalist to Jiang Zemin. With Jiang now in Beijing as General Secretary and President, Zhu Rongji couldn't genuinely challenge him. Zhu could only make things difficult, delivering passive-aggressive remarks, setting up minor bureaucratic hurdles, and asserting his authority in small ways. But to remove Hu outright? That was out of the question. This is why Hu showed no signs of concern. Whenever he mentioned Zhu Rongji in private, his voice reflected clear contempt.
Wasn't he a rightist before?
The implication was clear.
Would this rightist dare touch me? I was a Red Army child, a true communist.
He had been forged in the fire of Mao's Cultural Revolution, rising through the ranks in the chaos of ideology. Zhu Rongji, for all his power, had once been labeled a rightist, a dangerous stain in the party's history. Director Hu knows how the party worked. He knew that no matter how high Zhu rose, his rightist past made him vulnerable, and he would not be intimidated. Over time, I observed a surprising change in Hu's attitude. He appeared increasingly curious about my plans to leave China. He regularly inquired about my progress, preparations, and any challenges I faced. Initially, I thought it was curiosity, perhaps an older mentor reluctant to part with a cherished protege. However, as he continued to ask, I began to understand that Director Hu had assumed the role of my guardian angel. In retrospect, I believe God sent him to guide me and aid in my escape. He had no obligation to help. Typically, he would have tried to stop my departure. As a senior communist official, endorsing a defection was simply unthinkable, particularly during those tense times after the Tiananmen Square massacre, when party loyalty was under greater scrutiny than ever. Yet, rather than hinder my path, he smoothed it. Instead of questioning my intentions, he facilitated my transition. No one suspected any change in me in the broader office environment, the municipal government, and the Hengshan Group. I was cautious about upholding my typical demeanor, and performed my daily responsibilities with the same level of professionalism as before. However, within my own office, my immediate team was aware of the truth. I never concealed my plans from them. They understood my decision and grasped my rationale and strategy. Yet, as my departure approached, their anxiety heightened. They supported me, but they also feared what my absence would mean, not just for them personally, but for the office itself, for the delicate political balance we had maintained for so long. I personally selected and promoted everyone in my office. However, one individual truly stood out, Mr. Ma. He was intriguing. Possessing the literary skill of a seasoned author, he also carried the cynicism typical of a party insider. He rejected communist propaganda, yet grasped its workings better than most. Most notably, he was the son of one of Director Hu's long-standing political adversaries. His father served as director of the Office of the Bureau of Government Affairs Management, and had spent decades embroiled in a quiet yet fierce struggle with Director Hu. This was no ordinary bureaucratic rivalry. Both men were part of the Red Army and the party's elite 1938 generation of cadres. Both had risen as intellectuals in a political landscape dominated by military men. Both had fought, maneuvered, and schemed to carve out their respective spheres of influence in Shanghai's treacherous bureaucratic jungle. And they both despised each other. Whenever his rival's name was mentioned, Director Hu would snort dismissively, firing off cutting remarks with a wry smile. It was the classic battle of the self-righteous two men, locked in a slow-burning war of ideology and influence. Despite their long-standing animosity, I unexpectedly placed the son of Hu's rival directly in his path. When the Hengshan Group was established, the city's top officials wasted no time flooding Director Hu with recommendations, a polite term for securing lucrative positions for their children and allies in Shanghai's most powerful government-backed enterprise. Ever the seasoned political player, Director Hu relished the influence this brought him, but it came at a cost, an endless web of favors, expectations, and backroom deals. So when I proposed an open recruitment process, he didn't hesitate. He welcomed it. At least this way, he could sidestep the constant bargaining that came with nepotistic hires. So we held an exam. And the top scorer? Mr. Ma. I had no personal stake in Mr. Ma. He was simply the most qualified candidate, but I knew the implications. Hiring him meant bringing Hu's political rival's son into his inner circle. I watched as the director absorbed the news. For a brief moment, a flicker of unease crossed his face. An old fox like him would never object outright, but I could see the calculation behind his eyes. I had, in effect, handed him a snake and asked him to keep it in his pocket. It was risky. But Director Hu was a man of intelligence, and I was right. After a private discussion between us, he made a decision that still surprised me. He agreed. Despite his reservations, he chose to trust my judgment. At that moment, a long-standing political norm was shattered. For the first time, a government-affiliated enterprise had hired based on merit, not political allegiance. For the first time, a leader put talent above personal grudges. This was unprecedented in Shanghai's bureaucracy, and for the first time, I saw Director Hu in a different light. He wasn't just a powerful party official. He was a man who, in rare moments, could rise above the pettiness of politics, or maybe just did me a favor. Regardless, his decision deepened my respect for him. Mr. Ma carried himself with an air of superiority. As the son of a high-ranking cadre, he was accustomed to privilege and deference. As a literary intellectual, he considered himself smarter than most and rarely respected authority. And yet, despite our differences, we became close. For years, we worked side by side in the same office. Our views on politics and power were eerily aligned. Our conversations often stretched late into the night. Our bond, despite his arrogance, had grown into a genuine friendship. When I first confided in him about my plan to leave China, he supported me wholeheartedly. To him, my escape was an act of rebellion breaking free from the suffocating system that had shaped our lives. But deep down he was torn. If I left, he would be alone. I was his only real ally in the company. I was the only person he trusted. And he had made far too many enemies. His privileged background and sharp tongue had alienated him from many in the office. Without me, he feared he wouldn't survive long in the political jungle of the Hengshan Group. And he was right. Not long after I left China, Ma followed suit. He grew disillusioned despite working for Shanghai's wealthiest and most powerful enterprise. Eventually, he resigned. But our years at Hengshan had left him with something valuable. A sharp understanding of bureaucratic politics, power structures, and office management. That experience earned him a key role as one of the founding members of the Shanghai Stock Exchange, where he became director of the office. It was ironic. The system he despised had given him the tools to navigate a new world. As my year-long battle to secure a chance to study in the U.S. neared its final stage, I still faced my greatest obstacle. I had no money, financial sponsor, or proof of funds. Without proof of funds, my visa and my entire dream would collapse. It was now mid to late November 1990. I had 6 weeks left before my university's winter enrollment deadline in the U.S. Without a financial guarantee, I couldn't even apply for a passport, let alone secure a visa. At that time in China, obtaining a private passport was a bureaucratic nightmare. Your work unit had to issue a formal recommendation letter. You had to resign from your job to get that letter. Resigning before securing a visa was a gamble. If the visa was rejected, which was more likely the situation, you were left with nothing. It felt like an impossible predicament. I had to be patient. Waiting was my only option. Just as I was losing my final hope, a miracle occurred unexpectedly.
I've secured 8,000 for you.
One day, Tang Liming showed up in my office. We went out to the street corner, and he handed me $8,000 in cash, as we were in a sort of illicit deal. And then another friend came.
Sorry, I've only managed to get you $2,000.
Exactly $10,000, the amount I needed. To this day, I have no idea how they got that money. I never asked. I didn't dare to know. And I didn't care. Because this was my only chance, and I couldn't afford to let it slip away. When I told my family and friends my plan, their faces twisted in horror. "You're wiring all $10,000 to a university in the U.S.?" they gasped. "Are you insane? What if you don't get the visa? If they deny you, that money's gone forever. You'll be drowning in debt for the rest of your life." Their fears were grounded in reality. Securing a U.S. student visa was akin to a gamble, even with a full financial sponsor, rarer than hitting the lottery. Without sponsorship, it was almost unimaginable, a feat spoken of in hushed tones. Yet for me, there was no other option. Remaining in China was not a choice. It felt like a life sentence. They were right to warn me. Every caution held a sliver of truth. Still, none of it could deter me. I dismissed any notion of failure. Whether chicken or egg, it didn't matter. I would carve a path forward or create one from scratch. Sitting at the table at home, I counted the stacks of renminbi and crisp US dollars accumulating in front of me. An unusual thought crossed my mind. I had never seen so much money before. Even if I summed every yuan I had ever earned, every paycheck, every tiny bit, every fleeting cent, it wouldn't compare to this amount. For a brief moment, I felt like the richest man in China. Not even 10 households with 10,000 yuan each could match the wealth spread out on my table. Then that moment vanished, because none of it belonged to me. Every bill, every coin borrowed. In that same instant, I became the wealthiest I'd ever been, and the most indebted. A true proletarian, carrying a debt so vast it felt almost weightless, as if its sheer scale should have dragged me through the floor into the earth's core. And now, I was about to do something even more absurd, hurl it all across the Pacific, to a country I might never reach, a leap of faith or madness toward a horizon shimmering with promise and peril. I asked Q-Ling to visit the Bank of China to wire the full $10,000 to Fort Hays State University in Kansas. She contacted me as soon as she arrived at the bank. There was an issue. The transfer fee was 2,100 yuan, more than we could afford. I felt overwhelmed. 2,200 yuan? Almost 2 years' worth of my wages just to throw away the money? I asked Q-Ling, what should we do? Her voice was steady, but I could hear the weight behind her words.
Let's empty our bank account,
she said.
If it's not enough, we'll borrow the rest. We've come this far. There's no turning back now.
I sighed. She was just as crazy as I was. For all her training as an accountant, even she had abandoned logic. We were both completely irrational. Or maybe we just had nothing left to lose. It was early December 1990, exactly 1 month before the semester started. I still had no passport, visa, or application for either. I had only a desperate wire transfer to a school I wasn't even sure I'd ever see. So to push myself further, to commit completely, I did the only thing that made sense in this new world of insanity. I bought my plane ticket. A one-way ticket from Shanghai to San Francisco with a layover in Denver. It cost me another 5,000 yuan. That was it. Now I was completely broke. Looking back, everything I had done was absolutely insane. I had placed every last cent I didn't even own on a bet with almost zero certainty. I had pushed forward without a single solid assurance. Everything was based on a fragile, untested theory, a wild gamble, a wishful delusion. But I knew one thing. There was no way back. There had never been since the day I walked into Director Hu's office on June 5th, 1989. Because at this point, what choice did I have? The only thing left was to wait for the university to send me proof of funds, and then to face the U.S. consulate. Finally, in mid-December, I received the official proof of funds from Fort Hays State University, verifying the $10,000 I had wired to them. This was it.